Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 10th webinar of Local Governments and Municipal Authorities Constituency to the UNFCCC towards COP26, the climate conference in Glasgow in 2021. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability. ICLEI also acts as the Local Governments and Municipal Authorities Constituency focal point. Today, I will be taking you through our updates in our webinar, and for those who wish to intervene after the webinar is, let's say, presentation is over, we will be offering the opportunity to intervene by raising your hands or typing your questions, and we can respond. For those who have been familiar with these webinars, we are keeping all our participants muted at the beginning in order to make in order to ensure a smooth flow of the presentation. Throughout the session, you can type always your questions into the question box. Today's agenda is, I hope, yes. This is, as we have mentioned, the 10th version for the constituency of local governments and the municipal authorities, which is the networks following the UNFCCC negotiations. We're having these webinars monthly, and our traditional agenda is that we refresh our information about the traditional, let's say, institutional framework of the UNFCCC process. We then provide an update on what has happened since the last webinar, because this was monthly, and then we provide some highlights of upcoming events. In this regard, we will be focusing on some updates from the UK presidency. We have updates to the LGMA roadmap. Our October webinar was part of the Daring Cities, so we will cover this. And then we have a number of announcements and preparations during this week and the next couple of weeks. For those, again, who have not joined us before, in case you're interested, all our webinars are recorded on the YouTube. We have been running those webinars, and every month we try to highlight the most priority topics. As you can see, we have been engaging with the champions, the presidencies from COP25 and COP26. We had spatial, climate, land, and nature session. And since the summer, we are trying to keep our regular updates, and especially for the October one, it was part of our Daring Cities 2020 that was hosted by ICLEI. That was, in fact, our traditional webinars are 1 hour, but for the Daring Cities, we have organized in a 4-hour session with 2 slots. One was on LGMA and multi-level collaboration, and the second one was on climate action pathways, which we will go through in more details. Our last webinar of the year will be held on the 16th of December, and in that webinar, we will also try to have an overview of the year's achievements, but also try to give some highlights about what to expect in 2021. For a recap, once again, local and regional governments are engaged in the climate process since 1995. We are one of the 3 constituencies who have been engaged, along with business and environmental networks. We have been advocating the reality that UNFCCC and Climate Convention and Kyoto Protocol did not recognize local and regional governments, so we have kicked off our roadmap in 2007. On the way to, of course, Copenhagen. Since Copenhagen, we have advanced with ADP, the technical negotiations on this workstream 2. We have created Friends of Cities with national governments who are friendly to the concept of collaboration with local and regional governments. We were active in the UN Climate Summit with our achievements like Compact Mayors, and we have contributed to the NASCA platform that cities and regions data are available in this process. These all helped us, this preamble paragraph in the Paris Agreement, which recognizes the importance of engagement of all level government, and that is the historical achievement, because from Paris Agreement onwards, local and regional governments' climate action is not anymore a voluntary action, but it is part of the global architecture, which means we also have a duty to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement, especially the climate neutrality targets and 1.5-degree goals. And if you have seen in the implementation decision of the Paris Agreement, we have numerous references how we can engage in the process. So since the the advocacy until 2016, it advanced. We have been engaged in the Marrakesh Partnership. We have been instrumental in disseminating the spirit of Talanoa dialogues across the world in 60 sessions in cities and regions around the world. We have elevated our collaboration with the national governments towards a new phase like Friends of Multi-Level Action. It's not just Friends of Cities. We have been instrumental in Global Climate Action Summit and 2019 UN Climate Action Summit, with achievements also including now from Marrakesh Partnership. We are now advancing to Race to Zero as well. For a recap, climate conference of parties is a cyclic process. Every year there is a recap. There is a leadership from the national governments who have hosted the summit the year before, which is the end of or let's say November or December. So the country who politically hosts continues its responsibility, and the country who will host the next year starts to prepare as incoming presidency. And since this is a Rio Conventions process, it is primarily led by ministers of environment, but there are cases like when prime ministers or ministers of foreign affairs also had the leadership. In parallel to Paris Agreement, we have high-level champions, high-level action champions. In the case of this year, we have Chile, Gonzalo Munoz and Nigel Topping, and Mark Carney is also the finance advisor. Traditionally, they were coming together at the mid-year talks in June. This 2020 has postponed to next year. We don't know yet the agenda, but you will hear that there is now a new process called Climate Dialogues, which will update this slide actually. And within the UK presidency, we have now Alok Sharma as the incoming presidency. This slide is a bit updated. As you can see, as of October, there had been new announcements in order to reflect the spirit of an inclusive COP, the UK COP presidency, and in collaboration with partnership with Italy, of course. They have created several new bodies. Of course, these are under the authority of the presidency. These are not the constituted bodies in the terminology of the UNFCCC negotiation. So they are only accountable to the presidency of the COP of 2021. And a number of these bodies are especially relevant for cities and regions across the world. First of all, since May, we have a Friends of COP of the UK presidency, and in that group of, let's say, experts or politicians, we have Eric Garcetti, mayor of Los Angeles, also in his capacity of C40 chair. He's the only one in the mayor's or local and regional government's representative. Over the past months, the UK presidency have created a Cities and Regions Advisory Council. In fact, I am there as in my capacity of LGMA focal point. Excuse me, Cities and Regions Advisory Council was for the UK, and that was mainly the UK cities and the regional governments that is in collaboration with the UK presidency. There is a new body announced, which is Devolved Administration Ministerial Advisory Council. For those who are not familiar with the UK domestic governance, there are devolved administrations, which are Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, and this body is aiming to engage advance their engagement with the UK COP presidency. And there is a Civil Society and Youth Advisory Council, which is where I am involved as in my capacity as LGMA focal point and on behalf of ICLEI. This is mainly for the youth engagement. There are several others, but I would like to, we thought it would be better to highlight these especially as the main bodies that is relevant for us. Now, the UNFCCC advocacy, as we said, has traditional agendas, as year-round mobilizations. For so many years, we have been engaging this process through three main channels. One, we showcase our progress at local level through report platforms or events or summits. We participate in the consultations like workshops and Marrakesh Partnership, and we also participate in the decision-making process. Obviously, cities and regions or networks do not sign any of the agreements, but they provide input through interventions, and we actively work with the countries who are the ones who put on the table the negotiation text, that through multi-level action, Friends of Multi-Level Action, we try to help and collaborate that our proposals can be tabled by those countries who have the authority to put priorities, the text onto the negotiation documents. Every year, the presidency announces their priority themes. This year, UK has 5 priorities: adaptation, resilience, nature, energy, clean road transport, and finance. Since Madrid, we also have adopted our roadmap towards Glasgow. The spirit is that we would like to achieve a multi-level action COP in Glasgow. This had, let's say, 6 main pillars: to raise ambition, which is our climate neutrality targets, NDC vertical integration, localizing climate finance, balanced approach in mitigation adaptation, linking climate action to circular economy and nature, and amplifying global climate action. In this regard, I'm happy to provide you the most important progress over the past couple of weeks, because now we have a new member of our roadmap. The Rwanda local government authorities has been now officially joining the LGMA and also the working group that will take us towards COP26. RALGA is important. It is the first African network that is going towards will be collaborating with us for the COP26 and COP27, which will be hosted in Africa. It is not clear which country will host the next COP, but we know Rwanda is very ambitious in Africa because they are the first African nation to submit the second nation NDC. They are also a shining star on their dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, and now RALGA, through the collaboration at the Locks for Africa, which we'll come to this later on, they have been following our discussions and then contributing. We're very happy that RALGA will continue and act as a pioneering partner. The second important point, the city of Glasgow, which has been following the negotiations, also the local government mobilization across the world this year, from Santiago to Mannheim to Bonn to Kigali. Over these engagements, we have heard from City of Glasgow, the leader of the council, Susan Aitken, repeatedly mentioned Glasgow has a core priority on justice and equity. This has been a core discussion during the year, both with COVID, but also a number of civic engagements across the world. So we thought it would be the right moment to ensure a more in-depth discussion. During the beginning of the year, we also had an announcement by GCOM and the Global Covenant and the Global Task Force, and Human Settlements also has a discussion on that. So last 2 weeks ago, during the Race to Zero, dialogues, Susan Aitken has proposed officially that City of Glasgow, in its contribution to the LGMA roadmap towards Glasgow COP26, wishes to introduce climate justice and social equity as the 7th pillar, which is a fantastic complementary to all our efforts. Therefore, we are delighted and we are confident that COP26 community, the LGMA community will welcome this proposal. We will be working with our colleagues from Glasgow and RALGA for their active engagement. I don't see the list of participants now, but either in this session or in the 4 p.m. session today, in case any of our colleagues are joining us, we will also enable their intervention so that they can also share their views from their side. But as you have seen, this is a fantastic complementarity of our global, regional, and thematic preparedness for an ambitious COP26 to make sure that it is a multi-level action COP. Now, what has happened over this couple of weeks since our last webinar, as we said, was on 20th of October, the day before the LGMA webinar, the Minister of Environment, in its contribution to the Daring Cities high-level session on redesign and recovery, Minister Koizumi announced the progress with Japan on the Race to Zero, especially the net zero cities in Japan reaching to more than 50%, around 60% of the national population now is under the commitments of cities and prefectures in Japan who committed for climate neutrality. And he, in this speech, he mentioned particularly that he believes that this will be driving the Japan as a nation for climate neutrality. And he also proposed that Japan will be hosting a net zero cities forum in 2021, early 2021. Just 5 days after this announcement, the new Japanese Prime Minister Suga announced officially in the government, the new policy of the government or the new action plan of the government, that Japan will commit to carbon neutrality by 2050. Japan never committed to this before. For those who follow Japan, early this year in February, Japan made an announcement as a second NDC, but this didn't change the first one. And since the beginning, throughout the year, we were preparing, or we were in touch with the Japanese experts and officials that Japan will come with some more ambitious announcements, particularly because Minister of Environment was working with the net zero cities and prefectures. So this is an excellent demonstration of how national, let's say, ambitions can be raised by the ambitious commitments of local and regional governments. And we're proud that Minister of Environment has demonstrated this, and we're very excited to continue to working with the Japan Ministry and other partners like IGS and across the country. Japan was not the only example over the past weeks. South Korea, one of the also traditionally ambitious local ambitious countries on climate action, but in terms of their NDC, they were receiving relatively critics that it was not ambitious enough, or it was not reflecting the reality of South Korea or the potential of South Korea. We're happy to hear a couple of days after Japan, the Japanese President Moon Jae-in also announced that South Korea will go towards climate neutrality by 2050. And in fact, this follows the announcement from China and Japan. This means Asia, as the world's most populous now continent, is now on track for an ambitious climate neutrality target, which is of course very, very promising. So in this slide, you can see how local governments have also contributed to this process. It started with an adoption of climate emergency declaration by all local governments in South Korea. That is remarkable, because that was a huge demonstration how they are advancing on that. And just 1 month after, there was another initiative among those who had declared or adopted a climate emergency declaration. Several of them, which is around 17 regional governments and 63 local governments, have said that they are now committing to climate neutrality. This is an excellent example of how the climate emergency declarations are triggering climate neutrality actions. And of course, this further feed into a parliamentary resolution that was adopted by the National Assembly, again, and a resolution on climate emergency. And 1 month later, the government has announced climate neutrality. So for us, there is a strong correlation between climate emergency declarations, which in fact at the local level started with Darabin in Australia in 2016, but particularly advanced with the Fridays for Future in 2019. In this case, both in Korea and Japan and others like Australia, you can definitely see the political consensus, like a parliamentary decision or a council or municipal, let's say legislative body decision on climate emergency, accelerates the commitment for climate neutrality and triggers in many cases. And if national governments are in collaboration with their local and regional governments, they can be inspired, and their bottom-up commitments from local and regional governments can feed into the national one. Just one example, this particular topic is very, very important. Several other examples also exist in Europe for the moment. For example, we know UK government has also committed to climate neutrality, but before the UK government announcement, there were cities like Glasgow, Edinburgh, London who have committed for climate neutrality even around 2040s. Then Scottish government committed to another level of administration, and after these, the UK government have elevated. Similarly, in Germany, for example, there is a national consensus for 2038 as the date for coal phase out. But as we have seen in the case of City of Bonn, the City of Bonn had committed for climate neutrality by 2035, 3 years before the national target. So this collaboration and this is in fact the race to zero that who will race to reach these targets earlier is a fantastic inspiration, and I think the race to zero also has helped us in the momentum going forward. Other than that, we had in the beginning of November, Locks for Africa. This is the local climate solutions for Africa. This was convening every 2 years as a congress. This year, obviously, it turned into a virtual congress. City of Kigali Government of Rwanda, Covenant of Mayors of Sub-Saharan Africa, and ICLEI hosted jointly this session, and it was a particular focus on climate finance, and they have concluded with a finance roadmap for Africa, which will be released soon. But this was momentum that really have brought the African cities and regions into the process very ambitiously, very dynamic way. And as we said, RALGA, one of the partners, the Rwanda Local Government Association, has also announced at the closing that they will be joining the roadmap towards COP26 as well. And we will be working with them, especially also after COP26 is over, when there is an African host, RALGA and other associations of South Africa will definitely play a key role, and ICLEI and other networks in Africa will definitely be ready to support this process. Race to Zero, you have heard a lot probably. It was a remarkable 10 days on between 9 to 19 of November. During this 10 days, there were numerous sessions. A new website was launched. It focused on the core thematic pathways, so that it's not just the discussions, but the pathway documents, which is the recipe for a Race to Zero is also now released, revealed. Executive summaries of these pathways are released. The good thing, we have been sharing with you that since the beginning of the year, under the human settlements, we have been pushing for a subgroup on waste and consumption. And now in the official executive summary and in the action tables that it will come soon, you can see a number of agendas like zero waste cities, 1.5-degree living, and social equity as the levers that would trigger waste and consumption as a contribution to Race to Zero, especially in the human settlements. Obviously, there are a lot of references in energy, transport, land use, resilience, and water, but human settlements is also an important agenda. This is coordinated by ICLEI and UNEP for the moment, but there is a huge group of partners who are supporting this process. Recap for those who remember, during this 10 days, one dedicated session was on the 18th of November. We had 3 sessions. One was on cities leading the Race to Zero. The other one was on multi-level action, and the third one was particularly how states and regions are engaged in the net zero process. On that day in the morning, we also had by UNEP, the Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction Secretariat, they have hosted a built environment day as well, and a number of speakers were engaged, and several side events were hosted during this 10 days. But this shows how globally the networks and coalitions and mobilization of the cities and regions are supporting the Race to Zero process. During this 2 weeks or 10 days, there were several announcements. C40 and GCOM, along some other partners, have announced their Cities Race to Zero campaign. Meanwhile, ICLEI announced its more than 500 cities and regions climate neutrality targets by 2050, and that they would like this to be acknowledged in the process. There are intense discussions among the partners and the champions that those, let's say, complementary initiatives could be aligned in more structured and systematic way. There will be several, hopefully, results of these consultations among networks and with the champions. We hope more updates will be coming soon. The goal is that by the COP26, we will show thousands of cities committing to climate neutrality, either with their existing climate neutral targets, like the case of Japan and Korea, or US that you have seen, or those who would like to add more ambition by following the science-based targets that was just launched during the Race to Zero November dialogues as well. So we will keep you updated on how this will be concluded, but we're confident that there will be a strong collaboration among all these partners. Now, in this next couple of days, following the action dialogue, let's say, under the Race to Zero, now the UNFCCC is now convening the negotiators of the parties through a 2-week session. This is, in fact, not an alternative to the the subsidiary body, but it is trying to keep the momentum that without a COP or without a subsidiary session, and that means there's no negotiations, but parties, the delegations can still hear from each other, learn from each other, share their progress, especially at the national level, but on the global bodies. Many of those bodies like Finance Committee, like Capacity Building, like Action for Climate Empowerment, or Technology Center, Adaptation Fund, Green Climate Fund, they all had huge progress. At least virtual sessions was convened. During these 2 weeks, they will also share updates. We as LGMA will be contributing, and we are very happy that the new modality of the UNFCCC virtual conference enables us to more actively engage in the discussions, in the dialogues. There is unique features. Even in the opening session, we have seen, for example, traditionally, the observer constituency interventions were always at the end of this hours and hours and hours and hours long discussions. And when at the time when we were intervening, be it women and gender, be it trade unions, be it the business groups or local governments, almost there was no one in the room, so no one was listening to us. But for this session, the UNFCCC Secretariat, the champions, the SP chairs introduced an innovative approach that the interventions from the stakeholders were embedded as part of the sequence of party interventions. This was, of course, was limited to 2 minutes. We all know that, but in 2 minutes you can share a lot of information. So we were very happy at the opening session. Mayor of Santiago de Chile, from capital of Chile, Felipe Alessandri, has delivered the intervention on behalf of LGMA. Santiago hosted the second local environmental forum. They have adopted Santiago Declaration. This was one of the best examples of the regional implementation of the local governments, municipal authorities, COP26 roadmap. So it was, there could be no better leader to share these updates at the opening. So we are very proud and we appreciate his time for Mayor Alessandri. In the next couple of days, we will be having a number of other events. First of all, there will be a special event on the 1st of December. This will be focusing on multi-level action in raising NDC ambition. ICLEI and Climate Change Association will be leading this, but it will be also an update of our LGMA roadmap. At the closing of the 4th of December, Susan Aitken, as the leader of council, City of Glasgow, will deliver the closing remarks on behalf of LGMA. We believe that makes a fantastic handover, so that we start the session with Santiago, the host, the capital city of COP25 presidency, and we go to City of Glasgow in the closing, the host city of the UK for the COP26. So it gives a good impression that we are handing over now gradually to Glasgow leadership as well. So we are also again appreciative and grateful for Susan Aitken to be able to deliver our messages. Throughout this, there are a number of unique features. For example, there is a compilation of videos that was invited by the Secretariat to the constituencies. Secretariat made a compilation under the brand called Climate Voices in 18 minutes. And we have 4 leaders, Bonn, mayors of Bonn, Turku, mayor of Santiago, and ICLEI Secretary General was part of this 18 minutes compilation, but the other speakers, the mayor of Kuadukuza and Regions for Secretary General, were also now visible in the website or the YouTube channel of the UNFCCC, which means local governments are strongly demonstrating their support to the implementation of the UNFCCC Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement. On the 3rd of December, there will be a special open dialogue, which is an innovative engagement process where parties and observers or stakeholders get together around the same table with equal speaking opportunities. This has been a result of the negotiation of the subsidiary bodies, but that also has been triggered by the presidencies since Fiji, Chile, and the UK co-presidents now, the current leadership also, together the Chilean current president, they are also following this practice. So we have a large delegation. You can see the names that reflects the regional diversity and the level of participation. There are several presidents, several secretary generals in this list. This is a demonstration that the local and governments and municipal authorities take this issue seriously, and we provide a concrete offer to our leadership as well, that we make the equal dialogue. So because this session will be attended by Patricia Espinosa, Alok Sharma, Minister Schmidt. So we are demonstrating that since you have accepted Paris Agreement, that we are an important implementant of the Paris Agreement. We are here with all our leaders and all levels of our experts. As we said, experts throughout the climate dialogues, there are around 70 sessions. These are all virtual, and according to the procedures defined by the Secretariat, we were able to nominate speakers or representatives from LGMA community, and we're very happy that our colleagues now are registered to several sessions. This is from adaptation to finance to least developed countries to Article 6. So they will be able to attend the session as a participant, which means that they can take the floor and intervene. But all these sessions, or let's say most of the sessions, are also on a webcast, which means anybody can listen, but the intervention opportunities are limited to those who are registered as the LGMA focal point, which was the responsibility delivered to us by the Secretariat. So we look forward to the updates from our colleagues, that they can share their inputs or feedbacks so that we can update our advocacy strategies over the coming days and years as well. Here's an example. This is the climate voices, the speakers, as you see, 4 representatives of the LGMA community, Katja Dörner, Mayor of Bonn, Mina Arve, Mayor of Turku, Felipe Alessandri, Mayor of Santiago, and ICLEI Secretary General Gino van Begin. But as we said, when you go to the YouTube channel, you can see others, Regions 4, as well as Kwadukuzu, Dolly Govender, with their interventions as well. The next couple of weeks will be very exciting. On the 10th of December, UK 100, one of the partners of the COP26 roadmap working group, the network of cities who are going for ambitious energy, clean energy and climate actions, they will launch their local pathway through another virtual event. On the 11th will be an important day, because Paris, City of Paris will convene a zero carbon forum at the Paris City Hall. You can remember at the COP21 in Paris, the mobilization at the Paris City Hall was remarkable. We had more than 400 leaders of local and regional governments with 1,000 delegations, and their commitment was reflected to the document of Paris Agreement. And in that sense, Paris City Hall and the Mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, had always had this ethical or moral responsibility to be the custodian of the Paris Agreement. And the day before the official summit by the UN, she is hosting this session for cities and regions across the world. And this would be, again, introducing a new momentum. There will be important discussions about COVID, city planning, the ambitious proposal from City of Paris, 15-minute city, will be also discussed, but also the green recovery plans, that especially particularly important in Europe, and of course our roadmap towards COP26. City of Paris is taking the lead in making the agenda of these sessions and seeking speakers and exploring their availability, as well as drafting a declaration, which is circulated already to several networks, global networks, as well as European networks. So we will keep you as LGMA Focal Point updated about progress from City of Paris, and we'll look forward to an ambitious mobilization as well. And on the 12th of December, there will be a big celebration of the 5th anniversary of Paris Agreement. Obviously, this will be a UN Secretary General, UNFCCC, and COP25 and COP26 presidency, but the French government will be hosting this. This will be virtual as far as we know, but we can see whether things will be changing a bit. Several leaders may be in Paris on that day. The way that this mobilization is that the COP26 presidency has already invited stakeholders to provide 5-minute videos. For the case of local governments and the municipal authorities, they have particularly invited C40, GCOM, and ICLEI. And in its capacity as LGMA focal point, ICLEI is also preparing a 90-second, let's say, a constituency-based messages. and we hope this will be accepted. Those 5 minutes interventions or videos will be available in an on-demand webcast throughout the month, so that anyone who goes to the website of the Paris Agreement, they will be able to reach and read or listen to these videos. But during the summit itself or the event itself, during the live stream, the UK COP presidency is also reaching out several partners. We have heard that they have been asking for announcements, that it will be presented in a 90-second video. We will see how many of the local commitments or initiatives will be announced there. So this is how we are engaged in this Paris Agreement agenda as well. And this concludes now my presentation for today. Here you can find several links, of course, that will be helpful for future consulting to the official documents. In the final version, you will have we will have another webinar in the afternoon. When this is also concluded, when we prepare the final version of this webinar, we will insert several links as well, so that you can also reach to other documents. With this, I'd like to thank you very much for your interest for this webinar. Obviously, this agenda is particularly heavy, and it is at this moment at least a one-way relation, which is we from the LGMA focal point provide inputs to you or updates to you, and now it's the opportunity for any of you who are in the call to raise your hand in the button or type your questions into the chat box or question box, so that we can read or give you the floor to intervene as you wish. The floor is open. Don't see any hands yet so far. There may be updates if you wish, that you wish to see or keep ourselves informed in case this was missing in today's presentation. That's also possible. You don't always have to ask questions or ask for clarification. That's also possible. I see no hands raised up and no questions typed in. Well, we are always happy to save time and keep this agenda shorter than original planned. It's better than being late and occupying more time. So as long as there's no additional need for clarification or questions, we can conclude the session. There is one question coming from Oleg Gran, our longtime colleague from KS Norway, the local authorities network of Norwegian local governments. Just let me see the question, Ole, just a moment. Yeah, thanks for a good presentation, a lot of info to swallow. Yes, definitely, Ole. Yeah, I mean, this climate agenda, despite COVID-19, is always dynamic. You will never get bored in the climate agenda, climate negotiations. And the good news is that over these years, we have always seen progress to the better. I hardly remember going downwards or going backwards. That's at least my personal assessment. On the Monday, when I was intervening at the subsidiary body chairs briefing with observers in my capacity as focal point for LGMA, I made a remark such that when I see this virtual conference facility and the features, I remembered our days in Copenhagen in 2009, terribly cold but outside, but terribly hot inside because of the tensions and difficult moments of this was those who were there remember very well how difficult it was for both secretariat and parties and of course observers. And one of the challenges was that at that time in 2009 the registration or these badges were delivered by hand, and the lists were presented in Excel. We were sharing them the papers. In the case in Copenhagen, the LGMA delegation was 1,200. It was unbelievable. It was one of the largest and probably the largest delegation ever attending any COP event. And it was, of course, a challenge because you have people waiting in the queues or trying to come in. And after Copenhagen, of course, politically there was a lot of efforts, but Secretariat also advanced a lot. We have gone to a very skilled internet procedures, electronic submissions, electronic registrations, replacement according to weeks or days even. So there were a lot of flexibilities for participation. And I said that the COVID shocked all of us. So we are all forced to move from physical to virtual events. And Secretariat's infrastructure as of today was remarkable in terms of how they have advanced, introduced. It's one of the most high level capacity I have seen so far. And I said that just like you take lessons from Copenhagen and made it better, you also made another move that from physical meetings to you move to virtual conferences. The reason why I'm telling is this: obviously this session will not have negotiations as such, no decisions, no agreements, but the system, if it continues in the coming months, be it in June, be it in November, even pandemic is over and even we are able to travel long distances and come together, I feel that the climate negotiations or any of those global conferences will never be like the case as before, which means we may have more restrictions in physical gatherings. Let's be realistic, because not just the logistical capacity, but because the pandemic still would be hot. Therefore, they would like to minimize interactions. But it's just also the participants, audience, especially local and regional governments or stakeholders, have seen the benefit of being virtually connected. Yes, physically distant, but socially is bringing us together. At one given session, you can have speakers from Australia to US to Africa, from mayors to directors, from ministers to ambassadors, and everybody was so open-minded and openly exchanging views. I think, especially in Glasgow, such an engagement will continue. So the usual pavilions, the usual side events, I recommend not to expect this to happen in Glasgow and any other processes anymore, but be prepared for a much more innovative options. I cannot go to details because I also don't know, but that's for sure. We have to be prepared for a new normal, hopefully for the good, that is enabling more interaction and more participation. But we'll see. Let's hope that assessments or estimations are not wrong, or it's even over delivered by even more introduction of new elements and new features. So feel free to swallow and prepare to receive more to digest on the days and weeks ahead. And we will keep you updated, of course, and we will be looking forward to your support from all the networks, national, regional, and global, as part of the LGMA community. So with this, we have 15 minutes left, but I am more than happy to save your times and my time also. Just for a recap, this webinar will be repeated in the afternoon at 4 p.m. In case you're interested, you're more than welcome to join. And the presentation and then the recordings will be made available. By the way, Patricia, did we record this session?
Yes, it's being recorded.
Perfect, because I couldn't see in the pane. So it's good that you confirmed. So this will be available on the ICLEI's LGMA COP26 Roadmap YouTube channel, and you can find more updates from the other sessions as well. Thank you for your all participation and interest, and wish you all a nice day and a night, and look forward to staying in touch through the LGMA mailings, and we will keep you updated on any other important outcomes. With this, I'd like to thank Patricia also for her support to our technical system, and bye-bye.